CARE, that's the Council on American Islamic Relations, called on President Biden and Vice President Harris to watch the video of innocent civilians, including children, being burned alive in their tents following an Israeli airstrike in a Gaza hospital. It was one of few remaining places of refuge where Palestinians were sheltering and seeking treatment. And multiple videos, all of them horrifying, have been shared on social media. You can hear the victims screaming. You can hear them wailing. You can hear them in deep pain and extraordinary fear. And in one of the clips, you can literally see at least one person reaching their hand out for help as they were being burned alive. I got to tell you, I'm going to show the clip for a second. If you haven't seen it, it is graphic. So please cover your eyes if you're not ready to see this. I'm only going to show it for a couple seconds. It's worth seeing because of what's at stake here, but it is awful. And I need to be honest about that. So check this out. And the video is courtesy of Saleh Al-Jafarawi. Look at this. You see the fire. There are bodies behind that fire. And when you look at the image, there's a hand there. There's a person here. And you hear him saying there's a man, or maybe you don't hear me saying it in Arabic. Basically, he's telling you what's happening. The National Executive Director of CARE issued a powerful statement demanding Biden and Harris both watch the harm deliberately inflicted on Palestinians by Israel. It reads in part, if seeing a child burnt to death does not lead President Biden to suspend the delivery of weapons to the far-right Israeli government and force a ceasefire deal, then he is as much of a heartless war criminal as Benjamin Netanyahu. At least 10 people have also been killed by Israeli artillery fire at a food distribution center at Jabalia, a refugee camp in northern Gaza. A couple of things here. I agree with CARE that the president and vice president need to watch this video. They need to respond to this video. What we see here is a disgusting and disturbing war crime. It's indefensible and it's shameful. All true. President Biden needs to suspend the delivery of weapons after seeing this and before seeing this. I don't love the whole argument of, this is a far-right Israeli government, because it implies that once Netanyahu is gone, we can go back to funding Israel. That if we just get a liberal in there or a moderate in there, and there was a time when Netanyahu was framed as a moderate, right? But if we get Benny Gantz back in there, right? I'm saying we as a global community. I'm not Israeli, obviously, but if you get Benny Gantz in there, or you get whoever in there, right? You get somebody from the Labor Party. They're still Zionists. They still believe in the maintenance of this ethno-state, and they believe in diminished rights for Palestinian people. So I don't love the language of, the far-right Netanyahu government. That never works for me. But at the end of the day, that's not what we're dealing here with. We're dealing with war crimes. We're dealing with people. The fact that there's an airstrike at a hospital is itself indefensible. In the abstract, there could be a defense for it, right? But in the practice of this war on the Palestinian people, this genocide in Gaza, hospitals are being targeted when it's avoidable and preventable and prudent to avoid them. They still won't avoid them. People are sheltering in buildings and they're bombing them. And the fact that children are there just makes it all the more shameful. If it wasn't children, it would be shameful. But the fact that it is makes it even worse. So much anger I feel because of this. So much frustration I feel because of this. And it keeps coming up as Rennie Tay says, Israel has a right to defend itself. Israel has a right to defend itself. And the more outrageous the crime, the more atrocious the moral transgression is, the more the media tries to convince us that these are defensive moves, that somehow Israel is invading Lebanon to defend itself, that they're bombing schools in Gaza to defend itself, to defend themselves. Like, what are we talking about here? At what point do we as a nation, do we as a community of people say enough, enough, enough? Because again, this is it's just indefensible. That's all I can tell you. Nothing is funnier than a good old fashioned these nuts. Jazz said, "Why come the Nation of Islam can't not step in? Why do we keep waiting on the U.S. because they're not doing anything?" Somebody said, "Or the Nation of Islam." I mean, that's another conversation for another time. But it should not be on them to stop this. There's also questions of scale and capacity. But anyone who intervenes with the U.S. war machine, whether it's the Nation of Islam, whoever it is, right? Whether it's private groups, public group, whoever, whether it's politicians, there is no space to challenge Israeli lobby, the Israel lobby, or the U.S. war machine more broadly, and not be demonized, not be castigated. We got to figure out a solution to this. But no one's going to come save us. We gotta organize and do it ourselves, man. It's quite frustrating to see how these things are playing. How these things are playing out.